The pairing ceremony on the Interworld Alliance station was supposed to be the happiest event of the year. Every corridor shone with gentle silver lights, and every species from tiny cloud-like beings to tall crystal-skinned travelers came together to meet someone new. The idea of the ceremony was simple. Each visitor would pair up with another individual to exchange stories, learn about new cultures, and build friendships across galaxies. It was a tradition that had lasted for generations, and for most participants, pairing up came easily. People laughed, talked, and explored together within minutes. But in the middle of all this cheerful activity, one figure stood completely alone, Queen Zalaria. Known across systems as the Alien Vampire Queen, watched from a quiet corner. Her title made her sound frightening, but in truth, she was not someone who harmed others. Her species simply had unique features: sharp wings, glowing eyes, and a naturally cold presence that made other beings nervous. She had lived for centuries, leading her people with fairness and intelligence. Yet every time she attended events like this, she found herself standing apart from the crowd. She had expected it, of course. She always expected it. Still, expecting something did not make it hurt any less. Xylaria had arrived early that day, hoping that the ceremony on the Alliance station might be different from the ones she had attended before. The station was known to be welcoming, and its inhabitants were proud of their open-mindedness. She had told herself that maybe, just maybe, she would finally meet someone who would not be intimidated by her appearance or her long, complicated history, but as the hours passed, she realized the same pattern was repeating. Whenever she moved closer to a group, the conversation would pause. Someone would give a polite smile, then step back. Others pretended to be busy or guided their partners away with gentle excuses. No one was rude to her, but no one stayed near her long enough to truly see who she was. They saw a queen. They saw a legend. They saw a figure from stories told to children at night stories. That exaggerated her abilities and made her seem larger and colder than life. They did not see a person. Zalaria tried not to show her disappointment. She kept her posture graceful, her wings lightly folded, and her expression calm. She had learned long ago that showing sadness only made others more uncomfortable. So she stood quietly at the edge of the hall. Watching everyone else connect, smile, and choose partners, she did not resent them. She had no anger inside her, only a quiet loneliness that had followed her for generations. She wished she could simply blend into the crowd, but her tall frame, luminous eyes, and flowing dark attire made her impossible to miss. The ceremony hall was filled with warm music that drifted through the air like a soft breeze. Every species had brought a piece of their own culture to share, so the atmosphere felt like a tapestry woven from countless worlds. Dancers with feathered arms spun slowly. Holographic storytellers painted scenes from their planets above the gathering. Small groups sat around round tables, exchanging gifts, sketches, and memories. The room had joy in every corner, but none of it touched the space where Xylaria stood. She found herself looking toward the entrance from time to time, wondering if she should leave early. She knew that no one would question her decision. Many would even sigh with quiet relief, thinking they no longer had to worry about how to act around her. She could easily slip away and spend the night in the private guest chamber she had been assigned. But a small part of her held on to hope, the same hope she carried every year. Perhaps someone would look past her reputation. Perhaps someone would be curious instead of afraid. Perhaps someone would simply say hello. That small hope kept her rooted in place. Even as minutes turned into hours, her thoughts drifted back to her home world, the quiet lavender skies. The sound of crystal leaves rustling, the calmness of her palace gardens. Many people believed she preferred solitude simply because she came from a planet where silence was treasured. But the truth was different. She spent so much time alone because others chose not to be near her, not because she wished it. Zalaria watched two young travelers, both from different planets, laughing together near the refreshment table. A soft smile touched her lips. She liked seeing others happy, even when she was not part of it. She had always been someone who observed the world with patient interest. But today, the observation felt heavier than before. It reminded her of all the ceremonies she had attended over the centuries. How she was always the last one standing alone, a group of station workers passed by her, carrying trays of glowing fruit cubes and sparkling drinks. They offered her a respectful bow, which she returned with a gentle nod. They did not fear her. They simply did not know how to start a real conversation with her. That was often the problem. People respected her so much that they forgot she was not just a ruler. She was someone who, deep inside, longed for connection like anyone else. A few children ran past her, playing a harmless chasing game. When they saw her, they slowed down, unsure if they should approach. Zalaria smiled softly and stepped aside to give them more space. Her smile seemed to reassure them a little. One child gave her a shy wave. She waved back with a graceful motion. The moment warmed her heart, even if it lasted only a second. Still, when the children continued running, they joined other adults or other kids never her. The hall grew busier as more visitors arrived, and the sound of chatter filled the air. The excitement of the event reached its peak when the pairing ceremony's master of events announced that the official partner selections would begin soon. Everyone hurried to connect with someone if they had not already. Everyone except Zalaria. She watched as people sealed their pairings with small gestures, clasping hands, exchanging light tokens given by the alliance, or signing their names together on the glowing registry. Her name remained alone, unpaired. She sighed quietly, a breath so soft that only she could hear it. Her eyes traveled across the room, not searching for anything specific, just watching, just existing in the background as she always did. She wondered if she should simply walk away before the final announcements. That way, she would not have to see her name listed alone on the screen. She had experienced that too many times already, but before she could decide, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A human tall, with warm brown eyes and slightly messy hair, was watching her from across the hall. He was not staring with fear. He was not glancing away nervously. He looked at her with curiosity, like someone observing a rare star or a beautiful piece of art. His gaze was calm, thoughtful, and strangely kind. Zalaria blinked, unsure if he was actually looking at her or if he was simply lost in thought. Many people often looked around the room absent-mindedly, but he did not look away. She shifted slightly, testing whether he would turn his attention elsewhere. Instead, he straightened his posture as if realizing she had noticed him and offered a small smile. It was not overly wide or forced, just a gentle, genuine expression. She did not know what to do with that. It had been so long since someone had looked at her without hesitation that she felt off balance. For a moment she wondered if he was waiting for someone standing behind her. She glanced back, but no one was there. When she looked forward again, the human was still watching her. Perhaps she thought she should acknowledge him, but she hesitated. She did not want to misread his intention. She had learned the hard way that a single friendly look did not always mean someone wanted to approach her. Many people looked kind from a distance and then became unsure as soon as she came closer. Still, something about his expression made her pause. Something inside her whispered that maybe this time was different. She stood quietly, her wings folding a little closer around her as she waited to see what he would do next. The hall continued buzzing around them, but in that small moment, it felt as if the noise faded. Her world shrank to the space between her, the human across the room. Everyone else had already paired up, everyone except her. And yet, for the first time in a very long time, she felt the faintest spark of hope, like a soft light in a dark, forgotten corner of her heart. Perhaps tonight would not end as she expected. Perhaps someone might actually reach out. Perhaps she was not as alone as she believed. Dr. Elias Rowan had attended many scientific gatherings in his life, but the Interworld Alliance pairing ceremony was unlike any event he had ever experienced. Everywhere he looked, something fascinating caught his attention, floating creatures made of shimmering dust. Tall travelers whose bodies reflected light like polished gemstones, and tiny beings no larger than his hand, who carried bright musical instruments that sounded like wind chimes. Elias loved observing others. He was a xenobiologist, after all. His entire career was built on learning about different species, understanding their cultures, and finding the similarities that connected them. Most humans who visited the station felt overwhelmed by the number of unfamiliar faces and traditions. But Elias felt at home among strange and new things. He had never been afraid of what was different. He believed that everything unusual had a story behind it. Still, even with his fascination, something unusual caught his eye that evening, something he could not ignore. While everyone paired up, talked, laughed, or exchanged light tokens, one figure stood apart from the crowd. Not by choice, he guessed, but because others simply kept their distance. The alien vampire queen, Zalaria, stood quietly near the edge of the hall, her wings folded gracefully behind her. She had a beauty that was striking in a calm, mysterious way, and an air of gentle dignity. But Elias also noticed something else, something that most people probably never bothered to see. She looked lonely, not lonely in an obvious or dramatic way, but in the subtle way someone stands still when they want to join others but do not know how. Elias had seen that look before once in shy students at the academy. Once in visiting dignitaries who felt out of place, and even once in himself during his younger years. The more he observed her, the more he sensed an emotion beneath her elegant posture. Her glowing eyes drifted across the room, not seeking attention, but hoping for understanding. He wondered how many people truly knew her. How many had spoken to her without fear? How many had looked at her without seeing only her title? She was a queen, yes. A being of great age, yes. But she was also someone who stood alone while everyone else found someone to connect with. And that bothered Elias more than he expected. He watched as a pair of travelers accidentally walked close to her. The moment they noticed her, they stiffened slightly and shifted direction, not rudely, but out of uncertainty. Zalaria only lowered her gaze. She did not react with frustration or disappointment. She simply returned to her quiet observation of the event. Elias felt a gentle ache in his chest. He had read about her species before coming to the station. The archives described them as private but peaceful, gifted with long lifespans and remarkable intelligence. Some old records used dramatic language that made them sound intimidating. But Elias knew how easily exaggerated tales could spread. Real scientific knowledge painted a different picture. They were quiet, thoughtful, and often misunderstood simply because they looked different. He took a step toward her before even fully realized he had made the decision. Something inside him urged him forward, an instinct. A quiet pull of curiosity mixed with empathy. But after a few steps, he paused. Should he approach her directly? Would she find it bothersome? He did not want to interrupt her peace or make her feel uncomfortable. He glanced around. Everyone else already had a partner, and the ceremony attendants were starting to prepare for the official registries. It felt unfair that she would be left out again. Elias had always believed that no one deserved to feel invisible. He took a slow breath, straightened his posture, and began walking toward her again, this time with more certainty. Zalaria noticed him approaching when he was still several steps away. Her luminous eyes shifted gently in his direction. She did not move, but she watched him with cautious curiosity, as if trying to understand why a human would walk toward her when so many others avoided doing so. Elias felt his heart beat a little faster, not out of fear, but from the awareness of how important this moment felt. He did not want to say the wrong thing. He wanted to speak to her naturally, without the weight of titles or expectations. When he finally reached her, he stopped at a respectful distance, not too close, not too far. "Hello," he said softly, offering a gentle smile. The word was simple, but it felt like a bridge stretching between them. Zalaria blinked, surprised by the friendly tone. Her species did not use human facial expressions often, but Elias sensed that she was intrigued. Her wings shifted slightly, not threateningly, but as if adjusting to new attention. She lowered her head in a graceful nod. "Hello, human traveler." Her voice was soft and smooth, like the sound of wind moving through hollow crystal. Elias found it beautiful in an unexpected way. "I'm Elias Rowan," he introduced himself. "I'm a xenobiologist from Earth. I study different species and their cultures." Zalaria's eyes flickered with interest. A scholar. That explains your steady gaze. Many humans do not look directly at me for long. Elias smiled faintly. Most people don't look directly at anything they don't understand. She studied him for a moment after he said that. Not judging, just observing, much like he did. He could almost feel her trying to decide whether he was being polite or sincere. I have seen you watching the ceremony, she said calmly. You seem comfortable among so many unfamiliar beings. I like learning about them, he replied. Everyone here has a story. Everyone came from someplace far away. That's special. A quiet pause followed, gentle rather than awkward. Then Zalaria spoke again. And what story did you read in me, Dr. Rowan? The question was unexpected, but not unkind. Elias took a moment before answering. He wanted to be truthful, without assuming too much. I saw someone standing alone, he said softly. Not because she wanted to be alone, but because others didn't know how to come closer. Zalaria's expression didn't soften. But something changed in her eyes, something delicate. Like a small door quietly unlocking, you see more than most, she said. Many believe I prefer solitude. Do you? He asked quietly. She hesitated. It was a long, thoughtful pause, as though she was considering whether she should tell him the truth. No, she finally said. I do not. Elias nodded, not surprised, but moved by her honesty. The music in the hall shifted to a lighter melody, and more pairs moved toward the registry screens. The ceremony was inching closer to its final stage. Zalaria watched the groups for a moment, then returned her attention to Elias. You have a partner? She asked. No, Elias said with a small laugh. I got distracted watching everything around me. Her wings lifted slightly, like eyebrows raising. You chose to observe instead of pair up. Yes, Elias said. I wanted to understand the ceremony first, and I wasn't really looking for a partner right away. Zalaria tilted her head gently. You are unusual for a human. I get that a lot, he admitted. He expected her to smile, or at least react, but she remained composed. Still, the air around her felt a little warmer, a little less distant. Elias noticed that most of the hall was now grouped off, and the last few stragglers were hurrying to choose anyone before the registry closed. But he didn't look away from Zalaria. It felt important that she knew he wasn't speaking to her because he had run out of options, but because he genuinely wanted to. You don't have a partner either, he said gently. No, she replied. I rarely do. Then, with a softness he had not expected, she added, But I did not think anyone would approach me today, Elias said. His voice steady. I did. Another silence followed, but this one felt peaceful. For the first time that night, Zalaria's posture relaxed just a little. Her wings lowered gracefully, and her gaze softened, not enough to break her dignity, but enough to show she was no longer as guarded. Why'd you come to speak with me? She asked. Elias answered honestly, because you looked like someone who deserved to be spoken to. Her eyes glowed gently like dim starlight. Thank you, she said. Elias didn't step away. He didn't rush. He simply stood there with her, letting the moment settle naturally. It felt like the ceremony around them faded into the background, leaving only the quiet space they shared. And for the first time in countless ceremonies across centuries, Queen Zalaria did not feel like the most distant person in the room, because just one human chose to reach out. Their first conversation began with small, careful steps, like two travelers walking onto a bridge that had never been crossed before. Elias and Zalaria stood slightly to the side of the main hall, where the soft blue lights shimmered gently, and the noise of the ceremony blended into a friendly hum. Even though hundreds of visitors filled the room, the space around them felt strangely quiet, as if they had moved into their own corner of calm. Elias didn't rush to speak again. He allowed the silence to settle in a comfortable way. He had learned that some species valued slow conversations, and something about Zalaria's patient posture told him she was one of them. She also seemed to be studying him, but not in a sharp or intimidating manner. It was more like she was trying to understand how a human could stand near her so naturally. After a few moments, Elias gently broke the silence. Is this your first time visiting this station? Zalaria shook her head lightly. No. I have been here twice before for political meetings. Those gatherings were smaller, and I did not stay long. But this event. This is my first time attending the pairing ceremony here. Do you attend ceremonies on other stations often? Elias asked, genuinely curious. Not often, she replied in a calm tone. My duties keep me busy. And gatherings like this? She paused as if choosing her words with care. They are not always welcoming spaces for someone like me. Elias understood. He didn't need her to explain further. Her gentle honesty already told him much more than any report or archive ever could. I'm glad you came this time, he said simply. She tilted her head gently, a sign of interest in her culture. Why are you glad? Because we met, he answered with no hesitation. Her wings moved in a soft ripple. The closest thing her species had to a quiet gasp. Elias wondered if anyone had ever spoken to her so directly in a casual way. She seemed both surprised and thoughtful. That is a kind thing to say, Dr. Rowan, she said. Many speak to me with respect, but few speak to me with warmth. I am just being myself, Elias said with a small smile. That may be what makes it unusual, Ilaria replied. Another silence drifted between them. But once again, it was not uncomfortable. It was peaceful, almost soothing. Elias looked around and noticed how the hall was slowly shifting. More groups were heading toward the registration tables. The music played softly, and the glowing ceiling panels created a gentle atmosphere that felt almost dreamlike. But even with all the movement, his attention kept returning to Xylaria. He finally asked, Do you enjoy meeting new people? Xylaria considered this for a moment. I enjoy learning about others. I enjoy stories and cultures and seeing how life grows in different worlds. But I do not always enjoy the way others react to me, because they feel unsure. Yes, she said quietly. Some are unsure. Some are overly polite. Some avoid eye contact. Some become nervous. I understand these reactions, but it makes it difficult to form real connections. Elias nodded slowly. Real connections need comfort, and comfort takes time. She looked at him for a moment, as if reflecting on that idea. Perhaps time is what I have needed. And perhaps I have not been patient enough with myself. You've been patient with everyone else, Elias said. Maybe now it's time someone was patient with you. Her eyes softened in a way he hadn't seen before. You speak with unexpected insight. I try, he laughed gently. A small pause. Then Xylaria asked, Do humans often approach strangers so icily? Not always, Elias admitted. Some humans are shy. Some are confident. I'm somewhere in the middle. But I like meeting new people, especially people who seem misunderstood. Misunderstood, she repeated softly, as if testing the word. I have been called many things, but rarely that. Is it wrong? He asked quietly. No, she said after a thoughtful pause. It may be the most accurate description. Elias felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. Not because he had been correct, but because she was opening up not dramatically, but in small, natural pieces. Talking to her felt like unfolding a very old map. One careful crease at a time, Xylaria glanced toward the crowd again, watching pairs laugh and move toward the registry. Her face remained composed. But Elias sensed a small emotion underneath, a mix of longing and acceptance. Do you know, she said softly, that in all my years of attending ceremonies like this, I have rarely had a first conversation that lasted longer than a minute. Elias nodded. People get nervous? Yes, she said. Most speak a few words, offer a respectful bow, and then step away. He gave a small, warm smile. Well, I'm still here. And I am. Still speaking to you? She replied. They both shared a quiet moment of understanding. What do you usually talk about at these ceremonies? Elias asked. Diplomacy, she answered. Politics. My species' traditions, the responsibilities of leadership. People often wish to ask about my role, not about me. And what would you rather talk about? He asked gently. She hesitated. The question seemed unfamiliar to her. as though people rarely asked what she wanted. "I would like to speak about simple things," she finally said. "The way the station lights remind me of tiny stars. The music played by that musician near the stage. The scent of the glowing fruit drinks. Small observations of life. I enjoy noticing things." "Me too," Elias said. "That's one of the first things I noticed about you." She looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "You notice everything," he said. "The children playing, the way the music changes, the expressions of people passing by, but you don't interrupt and you don't judge. You just observe quietly." Her expression softened. "Yes, that is how I have always been. It's a nice trait," Elias said. "Some have called it strange," she replied. Then they weren't paying enough attention. She seemed touched by that statement, though she didn't say it directly. A moment later, Zalaria asked, "Do humans find me strange?" "Some might," Elias said honestly, "but only if they judge by your appearance before they get to know you. And you." "I don't think you're strange," he said with calm certainty. "I think you're unique and interesting. And actually, very easy to talk to." Her wings shifted in a gentle, almost shy movement. "You do not speak as others do," she said. "That's good, right?" he asked with a playful tone. "Yes," she said softly. "It is good." The lights in the hall dimmed slightly, signaling the beginning of the final phase of pairing. A gentle chime echoed through the room, and the assembled guests began to move in organized lines. Elias knew the ceremonies. Structure. The last section encouraged anyone without a partner to make a final connection before the registry closed. People rushed to pair up before the screens were locked. Zalaria watched the movement calmly. "This is the moment when most people decide quickly." "Do you feel rushed?" Elias asked. "No," she replied. "I have stood alone at many ceremonies. I do not mind if I remain unpaired again, but do you want that?" he asked gently. She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. "I do not," she said honestly. "But I am used to it." Elias stepped just a little closer, not too close, but enough that his sincerity felt warmer. "You don't have to be used to it." Her eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" "You're not alone this time," he said softly. "You're talking with me?" Her wings lowered in a relaxed motion, perhaps the most peaceful he had seen them. "Elias," she said quietly, speaking his name for the first time. "Why are you so certain about speaking with me?" He smiled. "Because I see someone worth knowing." The words landed gently. Like soft feathers settling on stone, Zalaria held his gaze. Not with suspicion or distance, but with something new: trust. Fragile and forming. "I am glad you came to me," she said. "And I'm glad you talked to me," he replied. The hall continued moving around them. Music shifted. Lights glowed brighter. But Elias felt as though something deeper had just begun, not a dramatic moment, but a real one. Their first conversation didn't end with a promise or a decision. It simply continued, slowly and naturally. As they walked together toward the quieter side of the hall, two beings from entirely different worlds beginning to understand each other, not through grand gestures, but through gentle words, honest thoughts, and the rare comfort of being truly seen. They didn't know it yet. But this simple conversation would become the beginning of something that would change both their lives. Over the next few days on the Interworld Alliance station, something gentle and unexpected began to grow between Elias and Zalaria. It didn't happen all at once. It happened in small, quiet moments that many people might overlook, but moments that meant everything to the two of them. The morning after the pairing ceremony, Elias woke early. He had planned to study the station's new botanical garden, which held plants from over 40 worlds. But as he prepared his notes, he found his mind drifting back to the night before too. Zalaria's thoughtful voice, her patient gaze, and the way her wings relaxed when she felt comfortable. He had only spoken with her for a short time, yet she stayed in his thoughts as naturally as breathing. Meanwhile, Zalaria stood in her guest quarters, looking out through the wide crystal window that faced the glowing planet below. She rarely allowed herself to think about people she had just met. She was cautious with trust. But Elias had spoken to her as if she were simply another person, not a distant queen. He had not been afraid, overwhelmed, or overly formal. He had listened, really listened, and that stayed with her. Later that day, while exploring one of the station's quiet corridors, Elias saw a familiar figure ahead, a tall silhouette with graceful wings and an almost shimmering presence. Zalaria. She seemed to be studying a holographic painting displayed on the wall, her eyes reflecting the soft lights. Elias felt a smile rise naturally without forcing it. He approached slowly, making sure not to startle her. Admiring the artwork, he asked gently. Zalaria turned to him, and her expression softened with recognition. Yes, it shows a sunrise on the ocean planet Kura. Their skies change color 6 times each morning. That sounds beautiful, Elias said. Have you visited that world? A long time ago? Her eyes grew distant for a moment, as if remembering something warm. The sunrises were peaceful. They made me think of new beginnings. Elias stood beside her, giving her space yet remaining close enough that their quiet presence felt shared. Do you still believe in new beginnings? He asked softly. Zalaria looked at him, surprised by the depth of the question. Till recently, I was not sure. But now, she said gently, I think perhaps I do. Their eyes met for a moment. Not dramatic, not intense, just warm. Understanding, they spent that hour walking through the hallway, talking about the little details of their lives. Elias told her stories about his childhood curiosity, how he once spent an entire week observing a family of garden insects just to understand how they communicated. Zalaria shared soft memories of her homeworld's lavender skies, and how she enjoyed watching the crystal leaves fall from trees during the cool season. Each time she spoke about her world, her voice gained a gentle glow. Elias listened with full attention, fascinated not just by the stories, but by the way she revealed them. The more they walked, the more relaxed she became. And Elias noticed something important. She wasn't just comfortable with him. She seemed comfortable near him, as if his presence gave her space to breathe in a way she rarely could. Later that afternoon, they found themselves at the botanical garden Elias had planned to study. The garden was quiet and full of glowing plants, some with floating petals, others with leaves that swayed even without wind. Zalaria looked around, her eyes softening in wonder. This is beautiful. I thought you might like it, Elias admitted. You chose this place for me? Well, Elias said with a slight smile, I thought you might enjoy the quiet and the beauty. Zalaria's wings relaxed again, showing she felt touched. Thank you, she said softly. You think carefully. They walked slowly through the garden paths. Elias explained how some of the plants absorb starlight instead of sunlight. And Zalaria gently touched a floating flower, watching it light up like a tiny lantern beneath her fingertips. Your world must have its own beautiful plants, Elias said. Yes, she replied. Some bloom only once every century. When they open, their petals glow like falling stars. My people often gather to watch. It brings us together in calm unity. That sounds peaceful, Elias said. It is. She looked at him thoughtfully. Perhaps if you ever visit, I could show you. Elias felt a small warmth spread through him. Her words weren't just polite, they were an invitation, a real one. I would like that, he said sincerely. They continued their walk, and as time passed, the other visitors to the garden noticed something unusual. The alien vampire queen walking side by side with a human scientist. Both speaking quietly, comfortably, as if they had known each other for much longer than a day. Whispers spread, but Elias and Zalaria did not pay attention. They were too absorbed in their conversation, too entranced by the rare comfort they found in each other's presence. On the 3rd day of their growing connection, they decided to explore the observation deck, a place where visitors could look out into the galaxy through wide crystal windows. When they arrived, the stars stretched in luminous trails, and distant planets glowed softly. Elias leaned forward slightly, admiring the beauty. This view always makes me feel small, but in a good way, he said. Zalaria stood beside him. It makes me feel peaceful, she said. My people have always believed that the stars remind us of how connected everything is. It's a nice belief, Elias replied. Do humans have similar thoughts? She asked. Some do, Elias said. Some feel scared by how big the universe is. Others feel inspired, I think. I think it reminds us that we still have a lot to learn. Zalaria nodded. Learning is a lifelong journey, she said softly, as they stood together. The lights of the stars reflected gently in Zalaria's glowing eyes. Elias found the sight beautiful not in a romantic or dramatic way, but in a deeply human way. She looked serene, almost fragile in her introspection, but it wasn't her appearance that struck him. It was the calmness she showed only around him, a calmness she probably didn't show often. Zalaria, he said quietly, I'm glad we met. She turned toward him, her wings lifting softly in a delicate motion. I am glad as well. There was a warm pause. Do you often feel comfortable with strangers? He asked carefully. No, she said honestly. I almost never do. But with me, Elias asked. She studied him for a moment, then said, with you, I feel seen, not as a queen, not as a legend, but as myself. Elias felt his chest warm. It matters to me, he said softly, because that's the person I want to know. Her gaze softened in a way that made her seem almost luminous. As the day faded, they spent hours talking, sharing small memories, noticing subtle details in the stars outside the windows. Conversations were gentle, unforced, and full of natural curiosity. And something deeper grew between them, not dramatic or overwhelming, but steady and warm. Their bond wasn't based on titles, appearances, or expectations. It was based on understanding, on trust, on the simple, rare feeling of finding someone who made the world a little brighter. By the end of that day, Zalaria realized she no longer felt alone, and Elias realized he felt drawn to her presence in a way he hadn't expected. They didn't say anything about what they were becoming. They didn't need to. Their connection was forming naturally, quietly, beautifully, like a flower opening in gentle light. It was a bond unlike anything either of them had ever experienced. In the days that followed, life on the Interworld Alliance station settled into a quiet, comfortable rhythm for Elias and Zalaria. Their connection, once new and delicate, slowly began to grow gentle roots formed through shared conversations. Small discoveries and moments that felt safe and sincere. One morning, Elias walked through the central corridor carrying a small tablet, studying notes for the upcoming gathering of Worlds meeting. He had been assigned to assist with scientific briefings. And though he enjoyed the work, he couldn't help thinking about Zalaria. It wasn't distraction. It was simply that her presence had become something he looked forward to, something that made his days feel brighter. Just as he approached the lift, he saw her waiting there. Zalaria stood with calm grace, her wings folded neatly behind her, her eyes drawn to a small star map displayed on the wall. Elias smiled. Good morning, Zalaria turned, and the soft expression that crossed her face was enough to make his heart warm. Good morning, Elias. Her voice held that quiet tone he had grown familiar with, a tone she seemed to use only with him. Heading somewhere? He asked. I was going to the cultural hall, she said. They are displaying artifacts from different worlds. I thought I should learn more about the worlds your alliance protects. Elias hesitated for only a second before saying, May I join you? Zalaria looked at him, surprised but pleased. I would like that. They took the lift together. The doors closed with a gentle chime, and the soft hum of motion filled the air. You're up early, Elias said. I slept well, she admitted. Better than I expected to, really. That's good. I've heard the station can feel a bit unfamiliar at first. It usually does, she said. But not this time. Elias felt a small spark of warmth at her words, though he didn't comment. When they reached the cultural hall, the room's wide arches opened like gentle waves. The hall shimmered with soft lights, and displays from 50 worlds filled the space. Floating crystals hovered above certain artifacts, projecting memories or stories from their origins. Zalaria moved slowly among the displays, taking her time. Elias watched her expression shift from curiosity to wonder as she learned about each culture. At one display, she paused at a small hand-woven tapestry from a peaceful world known for its harmony. It is beautiful, she whispered. It was made by a community that weaves together stories of their people, Elias explained. Each thread represents a memory or a lesson. Xylaria traced the air above the tapestry without touching it. Your alliance values unity greatly. We try too, Elias said. Though it's not always easy. She nodded thoughtfully. Unity requires trust, and trust requires time. Her words lingered in the air. After a few moments of quiet observation, Xylaria turned to him. Elias, may I ask something? Of course, what made you join the Interworld Alliance? You could have lived a peaceful life on your homeworld. Elias thought for a moment, then answered honestly. I wanted to help people understand one another. Sometimes misunderstandings become bigger than they need to be. If I can help even a little, then the work feels worth it. Xylaria looked at him with newfound softness. That is a kind reason, she said gently. My people respect such intentions. And you? Elias asked. Did you always want to lead your people? Xylaria exhaled softly. I was born into leadership, but wanting it. That was different. For a long time, I believed leading meant carrying everything alone. I thought distance was necessary. But lately, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Lately, I am learning that connection can also be strength. Their eyes met for a slow, quiet moment, filled with unspoken understanding, as they continued through the hall. Xylaria found a display featuring instruments from several worlds. Soft music drifted through the space-gentle melodies from different cultures blending in harmony. One instrument resembled a floating harp glowing softly as it played. Xylaria approached it. This sound is calming. It reacts to the presence of people near it, Elias said. The melody changes based on emotions around it. Xylaria tilted her head slightly. What does it sense now? Elias listened. The melody was warm, soft, peaceful. It sounds like comfort. Xylaria looked at him quietly for a moment, her expression thoughtful. That is a pleasant emotion, she said. They continued exploring until they reached a quieter corner of the hall. A small hologram displayed. An ancient story about two travelers from different worlds who became allies and helped bring peace between their people. Xylaria watched the images. With soft interest, it is strange, she said. How often different worlds find harmony in unexpected ways. It happens more often than people think, Elias replied. Sometimes it takes just two individuals willing to understand each other. Xylaria turned toward him slightly. You speak as if you know this from experience, he smiled. Maybe I'm starting to. Her wings shifted gently, a sign of emotion he was beginning to recognize. Not discomfort, not uncertainty, something warm, something open later in the day. They walked to the nourishment hall area, where visitors could try safe, shared meals from multiple worlds. The lights above glowed softly, and the tables were spaced comfortably to allow quiet conversations. I do not usually eat with others, Xylaria said quietly as they found a private table. You don't have to, Elias said quickly. If you're uncomfortable, no, she said gently. I want to. With you, I feel at ease. The simplicity of those words affected him more than he expected. They tried a variety of mild dishes from different cultures. Xylaria was cautious, but curious. And Elias found himself laughing softly when she reacted to a bright fruit that changed flavor mid-bite. This is unusual, she said, blinking in surprise. It takes a few bites to get used to, Elias said. It tastes warm, then cool, then warm again, she noted with a soft laugh. Your worlds create interesting things. You should try the desserts from the Lurian system, Elias suggested. They're said to be soothing. Perhaps another time, she said, her eyes glowing faintly. I would like to return here with you again. On their walk back toward the living quarters, the corridor was quiet. Blue lights illuminated the floor and soft music played in the distance. Elias, Xylaria said after a moment of silence, has your life changed since the pairing ceremony? He slowed his steps, thinking carefully. Yes, he said honestly. A lot. Her wings shifted slightly. In what way? In a good way, he said with a small smile. I didn't expect to meet someone who makes my days feel peaceful. Xylaria looked at him with gentle surprise. That is how I feel as well, she admitted. I did not expect this connection. They reached a quiet point where the corridor widened into a viewing lounge. Starlight poured through the transparent walls, lighting their faces in soft, shimmering colors. For a moment, they simply stood side by side, watching the distant galaxies move slowly across the sky. After a long silence, Zalaria spoke in a soft voice. "Elias, when I am near you, I feel something I have not felt in a long time." "What is that?" he asked gently. "Calm," she whispered. "A calm that feels safe." Elias felt something warm rise in his chest. "I'm glad I can give you that." Zalaria's gaze lingered on him, steady and thoughtful. "It is rare to find someone who makes the world feel lighter." He met her eyes. "You make mine feel brighter too." Zalaria's wings lifted gently, a quiet sign of emotion she didn't hide this time. "I'm beginning to value our connection deeply," she said softly. "Me too," Elias replied. They stood there for a long moment. Two souls from different worlds, sharing the same gentle silence. Not forced, not rushed, just naturally becoming closer. Their bond was no longer a possibility. It was becoming real, steady and quietly beautiful, a connection that neither of them had expected, but one they were beginning to treasure.